Hello. I'm without my regular computer right now. It's in the shop. Display is going out, so I have a little Acer Aspire. It says it's got an Intel Atom inside. That's about the size of it, too. It's the most amazing thing. I was happy when I heard it had Windows 7. I have wanted Windows 7 over Vista, which my other laptop has. But this is the first time I've ever had a computer where you had to buy your operating system. They call it Windows Vista Starter. And so it's as basic gets. It doesn't even have spell check in WordPad. I mean, we're talking basic. And the lowest price for the various levels and grades of Windows 7 that they offer is $120. Isn't that interesting? Add half, again, the cost of the computer just to upgrade to what I would consider a pretty basic operating system. I am not impressed. Anyway, I don't let that get me down. I'm just too happy entirely. I'm like a helium balloon. I almost have to be anchored to something here in order not to just, fly off into the cosmos in absolute raptures of joy. Okay, so it's early yet in the morning, and I have a journal that I started writing around 4:30 or something, which is no big deal. As I say, I don't have any clocks on the wall, and that's just a symbol of not being controlled by anything external. And I might or might not do this written journal, read this written journal for you. I'm going to check first and be sure my little built-in webcam is operating. And if it is, I'll come back and continue. Otherwise, I don't want to take a chance on losing a journal. Okay, that seems to be working well enough. Apologies for the hiss. It doesn't have a cancellation option that I can choose. That's okay. We'll deal, huh? Now, I'm just about floating away on joy. And so maybe the thing is to share that and some ideas around it. I guess it's something. It doesn't come and go. We come and go. It's always available. And we find perhaps that we develop into it because of the process of walking the path and of letting go. Mine has been to step out of the head and into the heart. And as I've often shared, you don't have thoughts when you're in heart. Now, center in your chest for me, or I won't make any sense. And I get a sufficient number of comments to that effect. So, center in heart, and don't let mind evaluate things. Don't let your mind be in control of you. You be in control of your mind. You call it in when you want to use it, and when you don't, you can set it aside. The heart has a mind. The gut has a mind too. Those gut feelings. The heart has a brain of its own. And if you go to check out the work of Heart Math, I don't know if it's the HeartMath Foundation or heartmath.org or .com, I don't know. But it's an organization that does the scientific research around things of the heart. And the heart produces neurochemicals. It's like people, when they get heart transplants, often get elements of the memory of the person whose heart is now keeping them alive. So this isn't woo-woo. This is solid, and it's real. It's not understood very well yet by very many, but the evidence is available. So, the heart has no need of the brain. It has its own. And frankly, you do what could be termed a higher level of thinking when you're in heart. Okay, enough of that. There's a lot of suffering going on. I love the way the Buddhist teaching is about compassion and the wish or desire for all suffering to end. That's a beautiful thing. Now, we're not in control of the world's suffering. But if we turn inwards, we can make a difference. And each one of us, I'm finding, makes a heck of a lot more of a difference than we now know. And that's all you're in charge of anyway, is yourself. That's all I'm in charge of. But I find that in going within the self, unseating the brain and putting the spirit, the being, in charge, the heart, if you will, that everything is so changed. It's amazing. Okay, suffering. I know I was angry the first time I heard that suffering was a choice. I read it on the spine of a book in a bookstore, and it made me mad. It really did. This life has been really challenging for me. Physically, mentally, emotionally, in a lot of ways, it's been very challenging. And I've been pretty darn positive overall and upbeat. It's easier for you when you're in love with God, you're in love with Source or Spirit, because even when you're in the world, you're not quite so attached to it, and it has less power over you because of that. But I still didn't believe that suffering was an option. I bought that book, by the way. It's funny too. I was too mad at it. I didn't read it for a while, but eventually I opened it up. I don't think I ever finished it, but eventually I did some reading in it, and it began to loosen those stitches that were in there so tight. The source of the anger there. We all, I don't believe there's one of us that doesn't have pain, and deep pain within, hidden or not, it's there. And so, why do I say suffering is optional? I'm going to go farther than that, and I'm going to say embrace your pain. Wrap your arms around it and thank it for its presence in your life. It is the absolute perfection of what is needed in that moment, right there where you are. No, it doesn't make sense to the mind. So what? Kick the mind out. Just tell it to go sit in a corner for a while. It's not needed right now. You're shifting. You're shifting dimensionally. Heart is just a portal. It's not a destination. And things aren't what they seem. When we recognize and realize our inner beingness, our inner emptiness, when we've disidentified more and more with body and mind, with everything, even soul, I mean, even spirit at some point, it's kind of endless. As we let go, we lose fear. We realize that who and what we are, while it cannot be defined, it cannot be touched, it cannot be hurt. I like the way David Icke puts it. When it comes to the body or the body-mind, it's like a telescope that the being is using to peer down into 3D, to have a presence and awareness in this dimension. It's not the being, it's the telescope. And so, yes, while it's true, something can happen to your telescope. You can even lose it. You don't die. You're the being. It's just like the brain is a tool that you're using, so is the body. You're not that. We all leave the body when we sleep. Dreams are not pretty pictures that flow through the brain. I pity the poor scientists who haven't yet had a near-death experience, or even an OBE, an out-of-body experience. Because as they're trying to put things together, in their intensity of desire to know how things work, they just don't have all the pieces that are needed. They're missing some of the most important ones by trying to make everything make sense only in terms of 3D, or 1, 2, and 3D. It's just not enough. It's nowhere. It's kind of pathetic. And that's okay. That's okay. Everything's okay just as it is. And to the mind, that sounds terrible. We have been programmed, my friends. Only it's not us that's been programmed, it's the body-mind. And so that's relatively easy to step out of. It really is. For those of you that are aware of or interested in it, NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, is a good way to unprogram some of the garbage that's been put into the subconscious and I guess the unconscious layers of mind, of being. It uses sound and frequencies and words to choose how you want to program yourself. And as you layer your new chosen programming in there, everything that it disagrees with, everything that it goes against will rise up in arms, and it will fight, and it will shout, and it will say not only no, but hell no. And so it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. You wind up doing some emotional processing as you're laying in your new programming, because what it does is it ousts all the other stuff. It brings it up. And as it comes up in your awareness, in your consciousness, that's your chance to look at it and make a decision. As you watch and observe, yay or nay, me or not me, something I want, something I don't want, and you can simply reject it. And in the seeing and in the rejecting, it's gone. It's gone. And then it depends on how deeply the habit is laid in, how many layers there are to go through. And if it's a really deep habit you're working on, it may take a while. It may take some steady, consistent work. But you're not redoing the same thing again and again. You're working through different layers. Everything has purpose. Everything has meaning. And everything is quite lovely, just as it is. But this is a vision that doesn't come to you until you've done a certain amount of housekeeping, cleaning, getting rid of the old programming. And all you have to do is have the determination and the desire, set your intent to be in heart. And that sets the process going. And you'll notice things that kick you out of heart, and it's thinking. It's okay for thoughts to appear. Just don't follow them, don't pursue them, don't think them. Just watch them like clouds going by. And that sounds nuts to the mind. So, if it sounds nuts to you, that means you're in the mind. Get back in the heart. Okay? One way to tell if you're in heart is that you'll find yourself not judging things. You're open. You can listen. You don't condemn things. And you don't necessarily accept them right off either. But you can be open. You can hear anything. And one way to know if you're in the mind is that you find yourself judging things. That's a mind thing. That's not a heart thing. We're multi-dimensional, my friends. Deeply, deeply so. I don't know anyone that's plumbed the depths and soared and found the boundaries of being. Do they exist? I don't know, maybe. What do I know, huh? But we do. We find the place within where we can truly say, I don't know, and mean it. In the body-mind, we're incomplete. And we've been made so aware of our incompleteness that we've taken that on as an identity. You complete me. It's like all that is one great big faceted gem, and each one of us is a facet, and we're incomplete without one another. There's not one single soul whose pathway has been followed by another through each incarnation, each experience. And so each one is unique. And the specialist in being you is you. And what you have to bring can literally be brought by no one else. No one. You have a very specific set of experiences, talents, abilities that you've developed, incarnations here, there, somewhere else, or non-incarnating, if you're an Anelia. You're unique. And all of us are literally aspects of one another. It takes all of us to be whole. On the other side, in between incarnations, which is a favorite place to explore for me, what's his name? Michael Newton. Dr. Michael Newton has written Destiny of Souls and Journey of Souls, and he's a psychotherapist who wound up specializing in life between lives, just like Raymond Moody did long ago. And in between incarnations, let's say you've had an incarnation where you had a really rocky relationship with someone, child, a spouse, a father. When you cross over, when your telescope when you lay your telescope down or the body dies. You go to the other side. You meet up with that one. You see, we have a presence there as well as here. Even while I am incarnate here, even while I'm using my telescope here, I'm still present in those other dimensions. And on each dimension, I have appropriate knowledge, abilities, and so on for that dimension. And so, even though your spouse, your child, or your father may still be incarnate, may still be living on earth, when you cross over, you still meet up with that one. And when there's been a really rough time, and when, let's say, the divine plan for the two of you did not get fulfilled, and there was much pain and difficulty, how do you get past that? Those feelings are so challenging, right? What Dr. Newton speaks of is an ability. It's much like the Vulcan mind meld for the Star Trek fans among you. An ability to literally share your whole being, your whole understanding, every experience, every thought, all of it with one another, so that you can see from that person's perspective what was going on there. How else to understand? This is the ultimate walking a mile in the other guy's moccasins. And so healing is very possible. And the thing is, we have this multidimensionality right now. All there is now. Every lifetime, everything, there's only now. And to the extent that we're centered in now, that's another thing you'll notice about centering in heart. Heart is only in the now. Nothing else makes sense there but the present moment. And to the extent that you can gather yourself into the present moment, which also means leaving thoughts alone, to that extent, you can find yourself within heart. You can find yourself centered. And I have no prejudice of any kind against any other way of saying this. Saying being in heart, that's symbolic. That's just representative of something that it's difficult to put words to, or it can be. So other ways of saying it are just fine. They work just as well. You're unique. Your way is perfect for you. Don't take on something if it doesn't feel just right. Go for that just right feeling. Go for the gusto. Go for the joy. I've been listening to a young man. I don't know how to say his name. I believe he's from Venezuela. Matias de Stephano or Stefano. He calls himself an indigo child who came in with memory retention. And more than that, in the inner dimensions, he is a keeper of the Akashic records. And so he is able to bring in much more and greater understanding about how things are, what it's all about. Right back to the beginning of creation. I know it sounds nuts, but check it out. He's there on YouTube. He doesn't speak English that I know of, but there are enough videos where they've got a It's not a soundtrack. You know, you push the CC button and you get the little subtitles. And so I found him in English. And it's well worth searching for. I don't have a link right now. I'm not very well set up, folks. I'm not even sure about the hardware I'm using here, you know, about getting this up to the web. But it might be MATIAS or MATHIAS. And he'll tell you, and I have to agree, it feels so deeply right to me, that what is ahead of us is no more systems, no more groups, no more organizations, no more of that kind of thing. The age for that is finishing. And that's why those things don't feel right to us anymore. We don't want to give over our sovereignty into them, and we don't need to. We're taking steps up in frequency that will enable us to be a power unto ourselves. And so it's your own divinity that you're loyal to. Getting to know the self is the very best way into that. I think you might notice, if you listen to many of my journals, that they all seem to start out with some kind of observing that I'm doing from a very personal perspective. The birds singing, what this looks like, the weather, sounds, whatever. And it always seems to begin at the very most personal level. And by following that, it can go very deep. It's within us. Everything. Everything that is within us. I guess I've gone on long enough. So, I'll see you later. I'll get that written journal done later.